Ladies and gentlemen, imagine reaching the age of 92 and looking back on nearly a century of life. Imagine surviving wars, heartbreaks, disappointments, victories, and losses, and still carrying a smile that radiates wisdom. Now here's the truth. In her voice lies a secret that few men ever truly understand. A secret about respect, resilience, simplicity, and love. And if you lean in for just a moment, you'll discover the very wisdom that can change the way you live, the way you love, and the way you lead your life. When you listen to someone who has lived through almost a century of life, you realize quickly that the wisdom they carry doesn't come dressed in complication. It doesn't sound like a textbook. It doesn't parade itself with grand philosophies or complicated theories. It comes wrapped in simplicity, and in that simplicity, there is power. She doesn't talk about how to conquer the world with strategies or how to accumulate power through endless tactics. She speaks about the little things, the everyday things, the things most of us overlook. Because the truth is, life is not about stacking up things you cannot carry with you. Life is about noticing the small moments that make it worth living. Men often fall into the trap of thinking that success is measured by how much they can acquire, how big they can become in the eyes of the world, how far they can go before someone else catches up to them. But what this wisdom tells us is something different. Joy isn't hiding in those endless pursuits. Joy is found in being able to sit at your table, breathe deeply, and be content with what is already in your hands. It's in recognizing that sometimes the best moments of your life aren't going to come when you achieve the biggest milestone, but when you appreciate the quietness of a morning, the laughter of a loved one, or the comfort of a shared meal. Simplicity doesn't mean lack of ambition. It doesn't mean lowering your standards. What it means is learning to declutter your soul from the things that weigh you down but don't feed you. A man who spends his life chasing approval, who is constantly running after validation, who believes his worth is tied to the size of his paycheck or the brand of his suit, will always be running. He will never arrive. But a man who learns the art of simplicity, who learns to value experiences over possessions, peace over recognition, gratitude over comparison, that man has already arrived, no matter where he stands. Think about it. The car you drive today will one day become outdated. The house you work so hard to build may not be the one you finish your life in. The applause of people, no matter how loud it sounds right now, will fade when they move on to the next story. But the way you live in simplicity, the smile you gave when you could have been cold, the peace you carried when chaos was tempting, the gratitude you showed when life didn't give you everything you asked for, that outlives material possessions. This wisdom isn't about telling men to stop striving, it's about teaching them to strive for the right things. Because the greatest victories are not in the trophies on your shelf, but in the contentment within your heart. When you understand this, you stop competing with everyone else. You stop comparing your life to your neighbors. You stop measuring your worth against society's shifting standards. You realize that real success is waking up and saying, I have enough, I am enough, today is enough. And that simplicity doesn't just change your life, it changes the lives of those around you. When a man lives simply, he becomes easier to love, he becomes more present, he becomes less consumed by distractions and more focused on what really matters. His children feel seen, his partner feels valued, his friends feel appreciated. Because he is not lost in the noise of endless wants, he is grounded in the calm of gratitude. That is where his true power lies. She teaches us that life is not meant to be overcomplicated. We complicate it because of pride, because of ego, because of the need to keep up with images and expectations that are not ours to carry. But strip it down, and life has always been simple. Breathe, love, work with integrity, rest when it's time, cherish what you have. These are the things that outlast titles, achievements, and possessions. If you pause and reflect, you'll notice that the moments you treasure the most are never the expensive ones. They are the simple ones. You don't remember the exact amount in your bank account 10 years ago, but you remember the laughter of a night spent with people you love. You don't remember every promotion, but you remember the encouragement that carried you through when you felt weak. You don't remember every shiny thing you once bought, but you remember the way your child held your hand, or the way your friend stood by you when you thought you'd fall apart. That's the power of simplicity. It carves memories that money cannot buy. And here's the truth that many men overlook. Simplicity is strength. It takes strength to be content in a world constantly telling you that you are not enough. It takes courage to slow down when everyone is racing. It takes wisdom to say no to distractions, so you can say yes to what truly matters. A simple man is not a weak man. A simple man is a man who knows who he is and what he values, and that kind of man cannot be easily shaken. In her words, you hear the truth that the longer you live, the less you care about possessions, and the more you care about peace. You start realizing that the most expensive thing you can own is not gold, not houses, not cars. It's a clear mind and a peaceful heart. You can't buy those. You can't rent those. You can't fake those. They are cultivated through gratitude, humility, and simplicity. So when she speaks about the little things, it's not to minimize them. It's to magnify their importance. Because those little things, when you add them up, become the building blocks of a meaningful life. The smile, the kind word, the patience when anger is easier, the appreciation when complaining is tempting, the joy in what you already have instead of bitterness about what you lack. That is the wealth that no recession, no economy, no disaster can ever take away from you. And men especially need this reminder, because society often teaches men that their value is measured by external achievements alone. But external achievements without inner peace will always leave you empty. Simplicity reconnects you to your humanity, to your relationships, to your joy. It strips away the noise and brings you back to what truly matters. Respect is one of the most underestimated forces in a man's life. Too many men chase power, wealth, and recognition, but they forget that all of those things lose their shine if respect is missing. Respect is not something you can purchase, and it is not something you can demand. It is something you live, and when you live it, it becomes the foundation of who you are. Think for a moment about the kind of man people never forget. It isn't the one who boasts the loudest. It isn't the one who tries to dominate every room. It isn't the one who throws around his status as if it's a crown. No, the man who leaves an unforgettable mark is the one who treats people with dignity, who speaks to others with kindness, who carries himself in such a way that others feel valued in his presence. That is the kind of respect that cannot be shaken. When you hear wisdom from someone who has lived nearly a century, the truth rings clear. Respect is not optional, it is essential. A man who respects his partner creates a relationship that lasts. A man who respects his children raises them to know their worth. A man who respects his colleagues earns loyalty that no paycheck can buy. And perhaps most importantly, a man who respects himself sets the standard for how the world will treat him. The challenge for so many men is that they confuse respect with fear. They think if they can intimidate people, they have earned respect. They think if they can demand silence, they have authority. But fear fades, intimidation crumbles, control eventually breaks. True respect endures because it is built not on force, but on character. And the man who lives by respect doesn't need to shout for attention. His presence speaks for itself. Respect begins at the simplest level. How you treat people who cannot do anything for you. It's easy to be polite to your boss, to flatter those you hope to gain from, to show courtesy when it benefits you. But the real measure of a man is how he treats the waiter, the janitor, the stranger, the person society overlooks. When a man respects everyone, regardless of title or position, he reveals the greatness of his own spirit. And respect is not only outward, it is inward. Self-respect is the backbone of every strong man. When a man respects himself, he doesn't compromise his values for temporary gain. He doesn't sell his integrity for applause. He doesn't shrink himself to fit in or inflate himself to impress. He walks with confidence because he knows who he is, and he does not need the world to validate it. Without self-respect, no amount of external respect will satisfy. You can be praised by the entire world, but if you look in the mirror and feel ashamed of who you've become, that praise is hollow. Respect also shapes the relationships that define a man's legacy. In a family, respect creates an atmosphere where love can thrive. A husband who respects his wife doesn't just say it, he shows it in the way he listens, the way he values her opinion, the way he honors her presence. A father who respects his children doesn't dismiss their feelings or silence their voices. He creates space for them to grow, to learn, to be heard. And when a man models that respect at home, he teaches the next generation what love truly looks like. But the absence of respect is devastating. A man who disrespects others may rise for a time, but he will eventually fall. Because disrespect corrodes trust, and once trust is broken, influence is lost. People may still follow out of obligation, but they will not follow with their hearts. They may stay near, but they will not stay loyal. A man who disrespects those around him becomes isolated, even if he is surrounded by a crowd. What makes respect so powerful is that it doesn't just elevate others, it elevates you. When you treat people with dignity, you expand your own character. When you honor others, you grow in wisdom and in grace. When you live by respect, you not only build bridges with people, you build a foundation of peace within yourself. Because there is no turmoil in a life lived with respect, there is no hidden shame, there is no need to constantly repair what arrogance has broken. One of the greatest truths is that respect is remembered long after achievements are forgotten. People may forget the money you made, the titles you earned, the possessions you displayed, but they will never forget how you made them feel. They will never forget if you listened when no one else did. They will never forget if you honored them when others overlooked them. That is the kind of legacy respect creates, one that outlives you, one that speaks long after you are gone. The beauty of respect is that it costs nothing but changes everything. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you earn, or what you look like. Respect is a choice. And every man has the power to make that choice. You can choose to be the kind of man whose words uplift instead of tear down. You can choose to be the kind of man who keeps promises, who values truth, who honors boundaries. You can choose to be the kind of man who doesn't just seek respect, but gives it freely. And here's the secret. When you give respect, you receive it. Not always immediately, not always in the way you expect, but over time, it comes back to you multiplied, because respect creates cycles. A respected man raises children who respect themselves and others. A respected leader builds teams that thrive. A respected friend inspires loyalty that lasts decades. Respect is not a transaction. It is a legacy. So many men believe that their worth is in being admired. But admiration can be shallow. People admire success. They admire status. They admire skill. But respect runs deeper. People may admire you for what you have, but they respect you for who you are. And who you are is what truly defines the life you live. Respect is not loud. It does not need to prove itself. It does not need to announce itself. It is quiet, steady, unshakable. It is the foundation on which strong men stand, the glue that holds relationships together, the principle that turns ordinary lives into extraordinary legacies. And the man who learns to live in respect has found a power greater than wealth, greater than fame, greater than influence, because respect is the one thing that time cannot erase. Resilience is the secret thread that runs through the lives of those who stand the test of time. It is not talent alone, not intelligence alone, not even opportunity alone that sustains a man through decades of life. It is resilience, the unshakable ability to rise again after being knocked down, to rebuild when everything falls apart, to keep moving when the road ahead looks impossible. That is the hidden strength most men underestimate until life shows them no other choice. When you hear the voice of someone who has lived through almost a century, you hear echoes of storms weathered, losses endured, and battles fought. You hear someone who has seen wars, poverty, hardship, heartbreak, and yet still speaks with light in their eyes. That is not the voice of someone who has never suffered. It is the voice of someone who refused to let suffering have the final word. That is resilience. For many men, the temptation is to believe that strength is about never falling. They carry this false belief that if they stumble, if they cry, if they break, they have somehow failed. But true wisdom dismantles that illusion. The greatest strength is not in never falling, it is in rising every time you do. Resilience doesn't mean you avoid pain, it means you don't allow pain to define you. It doesn't mean you never face loss, it means loss doesn't strip away your will to keep living fully. Resilience is built in the quiet places where no one is watching. It is built when you face disappointment that no one else sees, when you carry burdens you cannot explain, when you battle thoughts that tell you to give up, but you rise anyway. Every scar you carry, every setback you survived, every moment you thought you couldn't go on but did, those are the bricks that build resilience. And here is the truth. Resilience is not glamorous. It doesn't always look powerful. Sometimes resilience looks like wiping tears from your face and taking one more step. Sometimes it looks like showing up to work when your heart is heavy. Sometimes it looks like speaking softly when anger would be easier. Sometimes it looks like simply surviving the day. But in those small, uncelebrated acts, resilience grows, and over time, it becomes the very thing that makes you unbreakable. Men often chase external markers of success, but life has a way of testing what you're really made of. Money can be lost, careers can collapse, relationships can fracture, health can weaken, and when those storms come, the man who has built his life only on outer things will crumble with them. But the man who has cultivated resilience, the man who knows how to bend but not break, he may lose much, but he will never lose himself. Think about the oak tree in a storm. The winds may rage, the rains may pound, but the oak stands because its roots are deep. That is what resilience does for a man. It roots him deeply, so that no matter how fierce the storm, he is not uprooted. He may sway, he may bend, he may even lose some branches, but he does not fall. Resilience is not something you are born with. It is something you choose. And it is a choice you make over and over again. When failure comes, you choose to see it as a lesson instead of a definition. When heartbreak comes, you choose to keep your heart open instead of letting it harden. When obstacles come, you choose to fight through them instead of turning back. Each choice to rise shapes the man you are becoming. It's important to understand that resilience doesn't mean ignoring pain. It doesn't mean pretending you are fine when you are not. It doesn't mean burying your feelings. True resilience honors the struggle, acknowledges the wound, but refuses to stop moving forward because of it. Resilience doesn't numb itself. It transforms the pain into strength. That is why those who are truly resilient often carry a quiet wisdom, a deeper compassion, a greater empathy. Because they know what it means to suffer and survive, they carry a power that cannot be manufactured. Resilience is what allows you to keep hope alive when circumstances tell you to give it up. It is what pushes you to rebuild after failure, to try again after rejection, to get back up after defeat. It is what makes you keep walking even when the road feels endless. Without resilience, even the smallest setbacks can destroy you. But with resilience, even the greatest challenges can shape you. Every man will face moments where he feels crushed by life. That is not a sign of weakness. It is part of being human. What separates men who rise from men who stay down is resilience. Some will let bitterness consume them. Some will let disappointment harden them. Some will let failure define them. But the resilient man chooses differently. He chooses to see every fall as an invitation to rise stronger, every loss as a lesson to carry forward, every hardship as a teacher too. Hat refines him. And here's the secret many overlook. Resilience is contagious. When you rise, you inspire others to rise. When you refuse to be broken, you give strength to those who are watching you. A father's resilience teaches his children courage. A husband's resilience gives his family security. A leader's resilience strengthens the entire team. When you live resiliently, you don't just survive, you create ripples of strength that impact everyone connected to you. The beauty of resilience is that it grows over time. The more you endure, the stronger you become. What once broke you no longer has the same power. What once intimidated you now only challenges you. Every obstacle you've faced has added to your reservoir of strength, and that reservoir will carry you through the storms yet to come. Resilience is not about perfection. It is about perseverance. It is not about pretending you never fall. It is about refusing to stay down. It is not about avoiding struggle. It is about allowing struggle to shape you into someone greater than you were before. And when you understand that, you stop fearing hardship and begin to see it as part of your preparation. Because every difficulty you face today is equipping you for victories you haven't even seen yet. That is why resilience is the secret to longevity. Because life will test you again and again. It will take things from you. It will wound you. It will disappoint you. But resilience ensures that nothing life takes can destroy the core of who you are. It ensures that even when you are knocked flat on the ground, you have the power to rise again. And sometimes rising again is the greatest victory of all. When you strip everything away, status, possessions, titles, and accolades, what remains at the very core of life is love. Not the shallow version of love that the world often sells, but the deep, enduring kind that outlasts pain, time, and even life itself. Love is the thread that ties every meaningful memory together, the invisible force that gives purpose to every sacrifice, the heartbeat that carries you through the decades. A man can achieve the world, but if love is missing, he will eventually feel hollow. But even if a man achieves little in the eyes of society, if his life is filled with love, he will leave this world rich. When wisdom flows from someone who has lived through nearly a century, you don't hear stories about how much money they made or how many awards they received. What you hear about are the relationships, the people they cared for, the times they gave, forgave, and received love in return. Because at the end of life, love is what matters most. It is the only thing that cannot be taken from you, the only thing that grows stronger the more you give it away. For men, the temptation is often to measure life by external markers, how respected you are, how powerful you seem, how much influence you hold. Yet the quiet truth is that none of those things hold their value when love is absent. Respect without love becomes cold authority. Success without love becomes empty pride. Influence without love becomes manipulation. But when love is present, everything else takes on meaning. Respect becomes mutual. Success becomes shared. Influence becomes uplifting. Love gives life its true depth. And love is not just romantic, it stretches far beyond that. Love is the care you show your children when you come home tired, but still take the time to listen. Love is the loyalty you show to a friend who is struggling when it would be easier to walk away. Love is the patience you show when someone fails you, the grace you extend when someone hurts you, the generosity you offer even when no one notices. These moments may feel small, but they are the building blocks of a life that leaves a mark. One of the greatest misconceptions about love is that it is weak or soft, but in truth, love is the greatest form of strength. It takes strength to forgive when bitterness feeds. Lays easier. It takes courage to stay kind in a world that hardens hearts. It takes resilience to keep loving when you've been disappointed, betrayed, or abandoned. And yet every time you choose love over hate, compassion over cruelty, grace over judgment, you rise above the pull of bitterness, and you reveal a strength greater than any form of power the world can measure. Men often chase legacies, but the greatest legacy you can leave is love. Think about the people who will one day sit and speak about your life. They will not list your titles. They will not recite your bank balance. They will not display your possessions. What they will remember are the moments you showed up, the way you made them feel, the love you gave without asking for anything in return. Love is what people will carry with them long after your name is no longer spoken. And love is not limited to giving. It is also in the humility to receive. Some men struggle with this because they believe strength means never needing help, never admitting weakness, never leaning on others. But part of love is allowing yourself to be loved. It is in letting your family carry you when you are weary, in allowing your friends to remind you of your worth when you forget, in giving your heart the permission to be cared for. To shut yourself off from love is to shut yourself off from one of the greatest sources of healing and strength you will ever know. The truth is, love is the only investment that always multiplies. You can give money and never see it again. You can give time and never get it back. But when you give love, it expands. It fills others and returns to you in ways you never expected. Love may not always come back from the person you gave it to, but it always comes back in some form, through peace, through joy, through the quiet satisfaction of knowing you lived with an open heart. Love also brings clarity. It teaches you what matters and what doesn't. The arguments that once felt urgent no longer hold power when seen through the lens of love. The possessions that once seemed vital lose their weight. The need to prove yourself fades, because love itself becomes the proof that your life has meaning. When you love well, you don't need the world's applause to validate you. Love becomes the applause of your soul. And love is not passive, it is active. It requires effort, intentionality, and sacrifice. To love means to show up even when you don't feel like it, to put another's needs before your own pride, to give when it costs you something. That is why love outlasts everything, because it is built on choices, not feelings. Feelings rise and fall, but choices endure. A man who chooses to love consistently, even when it's hard, builds something indestructible. What makes love so powerful is that it is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you have or what you lack. Every man has the capacity to love, and every man has the need to be loved. Love crosses boundaries, breaks barriers, heals divisions. It doesn't care about status or success. It doesn't measure worth by wealth or position. Love simply sees the human in front of you and chooses to honor it. In a world that often pushes men to close themselves off, to harden, to hide their tenderness, love calls them to do the opposite. Love calls men to open their hearts, to lead with compassion, to show strength through gentleness. And that does not make a man less of a man, it makes him greater. Because any man can be tough, but it takes true strength to be tender. Any man can close off, but it takes courage to stay open. Any man can dominate, but it takes wisdom to nurture. And the greatest test of love is time. Beauty fades, possessions decay, achievements are forgotten, but love endures. Love is the echo that remains when everything else has fallen silent. Love is the warmth that carries through generations. Love is the light that shines even in the darkest nights. And if a man builds his life on love, he has built something eternal. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the wisdom of a 92-year-old soul reminds us of truths that time itself has tested. That the power of a man is not in what he owns, but in the simplicity of his heart. That his worth is not in how loudly he demands respect, but in how quietly he lives it. That his strength is not in never falling, but in rising every single time he does. And that his legacy is not carved in stone or titles, but in the love he gives, the love he receives, and the love he leaves behind. If you carry these truths with you, then no matter your age, no matter your journey, you too will live a life that echoes long after your voice is gone.